Hey YouTube, this is Evan Magician34, and I'm talking about the September 2011 confirmed ban list. They made 30 changes from the previous ban list, so let's go over them. First off is Fishborg Blaster banned. That's really good. Obviously, Fish Aqua decks and the Frog decks took a big hit off of this, but it was time. This card's open-ended ability to just keep coming back and coming back and coming back and coming back. Especially with Formula Synchro, although that's not a problem anymore either. Still, this card is pretty broke. It was the problem, not Treeborn Frog, so I'm glad to see this one go completely and still keep Treeborn Frog, because Treeborn Frog really isn't that broke right now. So, good call there. Mind Master also got banned, but considering the Gusto stuff and the OTKs that come out where you just search through your deck and draw your deck endlessly and end up with Exodia or Sling, they're all pretty broke. Obviously, you use the lab to get around his cost and whatnot. Or you can use the charging cell, I think it is. Either way, basically, this guy needs to go. He just enables too much ridiculous stuff, and he's too searchable. So, good riddance. Giant Trunade, it's very hard to stop, unless, of course, you want to run more creative cards like Magic Jammer, but a lot of players don't. So basically, the bottom line is Storm is easier to get around than Giant Trunade, and Giant Trunade also has some neato combos, which doesn't help its case either. So basically, yeah, it needs to get banned, but I'm glad they gave us back Heavy Storm in its place. I kind of felt like that would be the trade-off this time around. I don't expect this card to come back too soon, but it might yet come back in a few lists. But anyway, glad to have it gone for now. Royal Oppression, this card arguably probably should have been gone before. It just does too much, you know, it's just negate, 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 and there's really no cost. 800 life points is a small price to pay, especially in a day where special summons are so crucial to so many strategies. Realistically, it just does too much, and I'm glad it's banned. I think it's a good move, it's just a little too powerful. It's basically the bottom line. Blacklister Soldier Envoy at the beginning went to 1. When they changed the priority rule in the United States to match Japan, which they always match Japan, guys, so it's basically guaranteed to happen, this guy's not going to be so broke, because without the ability to call priority, he's vulnerable to everything. Even Compulse can answer him, but really it's going to be stuff like Bottomless and whatnot that's going to get him killed, or even stuff like Phoenix Wingman Blast is going to hurt a little bit. So basically, because he can't call priority, this guy's not so broke anymore. This guy's definitely going to help define the format, though, I think, because he's still really powerful, and if he does the multiple attack thing, that's really nasty, too. Still, all in all, I think he's really not that ridiculous, and having him at 1 won't be broken or anything like that, so I'm glad to have BLS, actually. Debris Dragon at 1, just because the instant Black Rose is pretty silly, but the problem really isn't Black Rose so much as the ability to pull this guy out and do it, plus he helps abuse Dandelion, who's pretty abusable, but still. I think Debris did deserve to be at 1. Lonefire Blossom. Lonefire going to 1 is good news in a way, but I think that by banning Dandelion, they could have saved Debris and Lonefire from going onto this list. They could have stayed at 2. But either way, realistically, Lonefire Blossom is one of those cards that's inherently unfair just because it summons any plant. And that's only going to get better with time as more plants are printed and more themes come out. So, Lonefire at 1, yeah, okay, it makes sense. And he may even be banned someday, but enjoy him at 1 while you got him, basically. Formula Synchron at 1, there are just too many decks that can just drop him and drop him and drop him and replace him. Obviously, Frogs taught us that. At 1 may be a little harsh, but at 2 really isn't that different from 3. So, I mean, I guess the 1 makes sense. It kind of hurts Quasar and Shooting Star Dragon, but it just makes them a little less powerful, I guess. So, ultimately, not the worst change. Next change was the legendary 6 Samurai Shi-En. I didn't have one because if you don't run 6 Samurai, you should get rid of any copies you get to make money off of them, especially since he went to 1 just now. So this guy is a stand-in for Shi-En. This isn't Kageki, this is Shi-En. Shi-En definitely needed to go to 1. Quite debatably, it needed to be banned just because it's a ridiculously easy to summon 5-star Synchro with 2500 attack, which is pretty high for a 5-star Synchro, and an endless supply of cost-free Dark Bribes. So I think that one pretty much speaks for itself. It was ridiculously powerful. It's better at 1, and another change that's coming on the list, well, Smoke Signal, also helped barely justify him being at 1 instead of banned. But really, this guy should have been touched quite a while ago. So, I mean, better late than never, I guess. TG Hyper Librarian. Honestly, I'm surprised this card didn't get banned. Not because it's ridiculously broken or overpowered. I mean, it can be, but a lot of the things that made it broke are now in check with this new list. The reason I'm kind of surprised about this guy is because he encourages synchros very much, and synchro combos, and generally speaking, it's Konami's pattern to promote their current cards at the cost of their previous themes. So I would have thought for sure killing Librarian would have been the way to go. They've made all the money off him. They're gonna pretty much, because they're already out of stock and have been out of stock. Not liable to reprint him anytime soon. So they made their money, and getting rid of him would help encourage Xyz monsters. So I'm surprised you didn't get banned as kind of like a backlash thing almost, additionally. But anyway, Librarian at 1 is good and fair, and it'll help make things like Quasar a little tougher to summon, but not really. But, he doesn't deserve to be banned, so I suppose that's really the right call. Trishula, Dragon of the Ice Barrier. Honestly, you rarely saw him summon more than once per game anyway, so in many ways this doesn't matter. But still, for any deck like Infernities that might be able to produce it more than once, I guess this is okay. And to be fair, its effect is pretty ridiculous, so especially since it doesn't target. So anyway, not such a bad idea. Heavy Storm, basically this one's at 1 because they took away Trunade. It's more negatable, but it's more satisfying when it lands. So it's a fair trade-off, and I like having Storm back. I think it's a good call. It's not broken. Pot of Avarice, this card had just been it was getting to where it was like 2 in virtually every deck, and putting everything back, especially with Reborn Tengu, who didn't hit the list, partially because he's a TCG card. Stuff like that is really making this card quite silly. The restock of the deck was almost as good as the draw 2. And so really, yeah, it needs to go to 1, at least for now. I think we'll see it come back up later when the format changes, but for now, Avarice at 1 is a good idea. Primal Seed, a lot of you probably don't even know what this does, and when you saw it on the list, you had to look it up. Basically, you have to have Chaos Emperor Dragon or Blackluster Soldier Envoy on the field in order for it to work. And it just gets you 2 removed from play cards back. I guess they didn't want us like going Primal Seed, Primal Seed, Primal Seed, or something like that. But really, I don't think that was a big risk, and I think putting this at 1 was a little overprotective, a little overcautious. But then again, I guess with cards like Sarcophagus, you could have made it a little more silly because you could have searched the BLS and set yourself up for some kind of combo. But anyway, for what it's worth, Primal Seed at 1. I guess that was to help control Twilight. Xian Smoke Signal, because Samurais were making Xian way too easily, way too consistently, and this was part of the reason. So just like Rhoda in the days of Teledad, Smoke Signal's finally been limited and controlled, plus, they do have Rhoda, so now they've only got 2 searches, basically, which is good. It helps control them, which they need to be controlled. Necrogardna went to 2. That's good. It gives Lightsworn a little bit of hope, as does BLS. And he's still not broken, and I don't think Lightsworn's going to be a tremendously good competitor in this format. I could be wrong, but I kind of doubt it. Summoner Monk, he's not too silly. I mean, Rescue Cat's gone, so him at 2 is a good idea. Tragoedia at 2, once again, really just because there's no reason to justifiably have him at 1. So putting him at 2 is a nice idea. I'd still rather use Gorz and Fader over him most of the time, but that's just me. Dualoran, Tiger King of the Ice Barrier, this was kind of a backlash against the big water combo deck. Putting him at 2, I mean, I don't think it makes a huge difference realistically, but still, he's back at 2 for whatever that's worth. D-Draw 2, this may create like E-Hero, D-Hero hybrid decks, but really I don't think Destiny Draw is that broke or that ridiculous, so I think it being at 2 actually probably should have happened earlier, but once again, better late than never. Swords of Revealing Light at 2, because once again, it's not really that ridiculous, and a lot of people probably will be using the 3 MSTs they now can. So, really, Swords is actually kind of cool, especially with Trunade gone, it's not so silly. Call of the Haunted, once again, with Giant Trunade gone, the last reason to keep it at 1 really was kind of gone. It's too slow to really be nasty at 2, so putting it at 1 is fine. There's a lot of specialized Call of the Haunted now already. Mind Crush, searching is kind of down, so once again, the last reason to have this at 1 kind of faded off, so 2 is justified. Judgment Dragon's off the list because Lightsworn's best power, like Lumina and Honest and stuff, is just so limited. Judge at 3 really is almost bad for you because you don't want him to stack up in your hand, so, I mean, Judge at 3 is not a problem. Neither is Spirit Reaper. This guy probably could have been at 3 last format, no one would have known the difference. Once again, just too slow and too weak, it's not much of a discard format. Megamorph at 3 because it doesn't make a difference. Probably should have been at 3 earlier. MST is at 3. I wouldn't necessarily advise running 3 MSTs, but for what it's worth, you now have 3 MSTs. I guess that's really just partially compensating for the loss of True Nade. Overload Fusion, once again, it's at 3 because it really doesn't matter. As long as Feature Fusion's at 1, doesn't really matter. Gravity Bind is at 3. This is mainly because of Xyz monsters to help encourage them, because this obviously doesn't have any effect on them. But I still think this is quite silly, at least for now, because Xyz monsters aren't that great a presence. And this does lock down a lot of stuff, and Synchros are still quite the power. So for the decks that can play it, this is going to be awesome. And last but not least, Icarus Attack is now at 3 to help Blackwings out. Much of their core is still pretty damaged, like the Collude at 1 and the Gale at 1. But this may give them some competitive edge in this format. So we're going to have to wait and see, but I do like this for Blackwings. I think it's fair because Blackwings weren't that competitive last format, and they deserve to be at least a little competitive. So anyway, that's the ban list for this format, and until next time, rate, comment, subscribe, and check out my channel for more cool